Hello, ski racing fans, and welcome back to the American Downhiller podcast presented by skiracing.com, episode number 2, titled The Legend of Lindsey Vonn. I'm Doug Lewis with Hahnenkamm winner Darren Rolfs and World Cup winner Marco Sullivan. And today we have the most special guest, the GOAT, the winningest of all American downhillers with 82 World Cup wins, 43 of those downhill wins. Lindsey Vonn. Lindsey, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
I have to start with some stats on you and Lake Louise. Raced it 17 years on the World Cup level from 2001 to 2017. 18 wins, 14 in downhill, 25 podiums. The biggest DH win margin, 1.95 seconds in 2011. That's like a day and a half. Smallest DH win, 0.03 seconds. Average DH win, 0.84. Amazing. So what is it about Lake Louise that enabled you to dominate, and was it always your course?
I think I just understood the course well. I wouldn't say I always dominated Lake Louise because I definitely straddled once coming off of Tickety, and I was helicoptered off. I think that was my second time down, so that was not good. Also, my first year in 2001, I crashed off the last jump. I was trying to qualify for the 2002 Olympics. I was in third place. I think it was my first Super G World Cup. Crashed off the last jump, didn't make it. I still made the Olympic team, but it did not start off with a good note. Let me just say that. But it was one of those races where when I was at Ski Club Vale, we would watch that race every single year on Outside TV, I think it was at the time. And I remember visualizing that course over and over. So even before I ever set foot on that course, I had visualized it in my mind a million times. I definitely think that helped. But once I found the rhythm of the course and where to gain speed and where I could make mistakes and where I couldn't, I just had so much confidence. I honestly didn't really need to inspect that much. I just knew the hill so well. So didn't start off well, but I'd say it ended well.
Yeah, you brought up, Lindsey, the amount of times you've mentally rehearsed that run at Lake Louise. Was that something more at that one specific venue for you than in, say, Cortina or other places?
Yeah, it was the only that I knew of, the only race that was on television in the US. So it was really the only opportunity I had to really see World Cup racing, other than buying the World Cup winning runs VHS tape.
We all had those.
Yes. But I mean, it was, yeah, I think myself and Ski Club Vale took a lot of pride, and that was our North American downhill. And even though it was Canada, it was still felt like a home race. And I always enjoyed watching it and visualizing it. And I think visualization in my career was something that I grew very good at. And I think part of that was from the lessons I learned at Ski Club and, again, visualizing Lake Louise a million times.
And we had like NORAMs there coming up as well. Do you remember having good success in the NORAMs? Or
I never raced the NORAMs. No, not there. I raced a few NORAMs, I think in Whiteface, and I don't really remember where. I didn't do very many NORAMs. I kind of skipped into that and went to Europa Cup and then right into World Cup, because we had a really good and deep World Cup speed team at the time. And with the 2002 Olympics coming up, they saw potential in my speed. And so I was kind of along for the ride with that kind of 2002 prep team, and I was able to get a lot of experience. And I think they're kind of testing out Julia Mancuso and I to see if, which one of us, or if either of us were going to make it, and maybe they could put one of us in for future development for the combined at the 2002 Olympics, which they ended up putting both of us in.
Let's break down this course just a little bit. I've studied your wins. You've won it from top to bottom. You've won it on the last 5 seconds. Is there a particular section of course that you just love, that you just it was just natural to you, and why?
I think fall away was definitely a section of the course that I understood very well, and I knew how to really gain a lot of speed. and coming onto the flats, carrying that speed onto the flats and really gaining momentum. I didn't, of course, always do that. Sometimes I won the race in the last 5 seconds. But I'd say generally that was a place that I understood very well, and I could really find the fall line well. Coach's corner as well. I wasn't always great at tickety. I think that's obviously my straddle. Wasn't always a place where I felt entirely comfortable. But yeah, as I fall away was kind of the place where I gained the most confidence and the most speed from.
Well, I mean, watching you race there, you definitely took more of an aggressive line and just like ski with full confidence. I mean, there's times where you made mistakes too through there, but you're on the edge. And that's what I loved about your skiing is you're always aggressive, just firing it down the mountain. And, I never thought like, there was ever a perfect run I ever had. There's always like my fast runs were a little out of control, but like, and watching you ski, that's kind of the same way. I mean, you're on the edge, and I think that's the most fun way to ski. You feel alive that way, and there's risk. I mean, you obviously took a lot of risk, but were you really pushing your limits, or did you feel like you're kind of skiing within yourself a lot of places?
I mean, I definitely never skied to have a perfect run. I think to your point, there never really is a perfect run, and especially if you're pushing the limits, which I always did. And that's one thing that I loved about speed is that, I loved pushing the limits to see what I could do. And in fishnet, I always tried different lines. I love trying aggressive lines or, really round lines. I loved trying to experiment and see what I could get away with, because it, comparatively, it's on the easier side kind of. And so it's really difficult to differentiate yourself from the competitors. So there's only a few turns, and fishnet is one of those where, especially if it's icy from the men's race the week before, you really can, separate yourself from the rest of the group. And to your point of making a mistake, I hip checked once in fishnet and was still able to win the race, but mainly because I knew that I could get so much speed from fall away, and make up that time on the flats, hopefully. But yeah, I always pushed myself to the limit. I love the risk of downhill. It's really what has always excited me. It's never been about, the perfect run or the perfect turn. It's just about, pushing yourself to the limit every time. And I always said to myself, I never want to have any regrets. I never want to not push myself enough and get to the finish line and say I could have done more. So while I crashed a lot, I never had any regrets, because I would rather crash than have gotten down and be, fourth or fifth or 10th and say I should have done more with that. So that was always my approach to downhill and generally just to racing as a whole.
I was wondering, you're talking about your approach to downhill, and obviously you ended your career as best downhiller of all time in our country, and for any country, I guess, for ladies. But you starting at like Buck Hill, right? And you have these beginnings at the tiny mountain, and we're running the American Downhiller camps now, mostly out west, to like try and just teach kids the fundamentals of jumping and aerodynamics. And but at what point did you really feel comfortable with that? And was there a time in your career when it all clicked, moving from like a slalom skier to a speed skier?
Yeah, I mean, Buck Hill was less than 300 vertical feet, so it's not exactly a typical start for a downhiller. But I started, going out to Colorado when I was about 11. Did a couple months out there with Ski Vale, and then eventually, I think I was 12 or 13, my family moved out there. And really, I moved out there so that I could be able to ski in the mountains and, learn downhill and Super G and even GS. I think the GS course at Buck Hill was like 5 or 6 gates. And I think that I definitely learned, obviously I learned the fundamentals of skiing at Buck Hill, but I learned the fundamentals of downhill at Ski Vale. We had the Junior Olympics there for, I think, pretty much most of my junior racing, which included a Super G and a downhill. So we did a lot of prep on that on that junior Olympic course. We did camel jumps. We didn't do a lot of regular jump training, I would say. I think that I learned more of the jumps with the US ski team. We had camps at Bachelor Mountain at the time, and they had just a few jumps set up, and we could kind of come into the jump with different speed and practice our technique. I don't feel like that's necessarily done that much anymore. I think your American downhill camps are like the only ones that do it, and I appreciate it because I think it's a fundamental skill that I feel like people make it onto the US ski team, or they've been racing Europe Cups and NORAMs, and they kind of skip that step of learning jump technique, of learning visualization, how body position makes such a big difference in the air, and also again visualization. So I really have Skiko Vale to thank for all of those skills, and I always loved going fast though. I never had a problem transitioning from Buckhill to Vale. I was always racing everyone, just even on the cat track from the top of the lift to Golden Peak, trying to see if I could get my skis to glide better than everyone else's. It was just something that I inherently always loved. And again, I think I was lucky that I was able to get the skills and the coaching and the facilities to be able to practice those skills that got me ready for the World Cup.
You talked about always loving speed, and I do a lot of speaking, and people think I'm crazy, and I'm always the crazy downhillers end up in the hospital. Do you think
Yeah, Lindsey raised her hand.
That'd be me.
Yeah, we've all been there. Do you think you have something screwed on too tight or something screwed on too loose? Is it something that you just are born with, this love of speed?
Tight, loose. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, both.
It's definitely, yeah, definitely. I think I've never actually heard anyone say it that way. I think I'm wound a little bit tight when it comes to competition.
Yeah.
I am hyper competitive at everything that I do. So skiing was great, real life, not so great. But I think I definitely had a screw loose when it came to speed. The fear factor is just not there for me. And I think that's one of the reasons why, after I've been injured 9,000 times, I still was never afraid of it, because I literally love it. I would do anything to get back on the mountain and go 80 miles an hour. It's just something that is in me that I feel like I need to do, which is why it's a little difficult now that I'm retired, and I love just jumping on a pair of downhill skis every once in a while, and hopefully not getting my pass pulled. But it's definitely not the same, I'll say that.
Hey, Lindsey, with that said, it brings up a point, like you came back from so many injuries and right back on the top of your game. What kind of advice could you pass on to others, especially say like Breezy right now, who was super fast last year? She hasn't quite made that next step with a World Cup win, but she's really close. She's got the speed, but did you talk to her in Copper, or just have you talked to her at all, like just trying to help her mentally? Because we all know it's like physically you get there, but that mental kind of aspect is the next step. And just like, your fire in the start when we were shooting that HBO documentary on you in Cortina, and I was up there for a training run, and you're in the gate, and you're just, your routine is just like moving your fingers and your gloves and getting all fired up, breathing heavy. And like, that's like, I think that mental cue. I don't know if there's something cool that you said to yourself, or something that Heinz or somebody that, your coaches, the last couple of words. But one, I guess I'd like to know what you could, if you passed on anything to help, Breezy or the other kids, come back from injuries. But two, like, what did you kind of like think about or say to yourself in the start to get completely fired up, ready to throw down?
Well, I guess I'll start with the second question, because the hand thing is something that I actually started doing because I felt like there was too much time. Once you put your poles over the wand, it was just too much time to think. It was like 15 seconds. I'm like, what am I going to do with 15 seconds? And I wanted to keep that sharp mentality where, I was really, in an aggressive state of mind. And so I kind of started doing that. And I always liked also my poles to be in a specific position, like the feeling of the pressure of, the strap in your hand. So it was a good way for me to just mentally disconnect from the 15 seconds while still staying aggressive. And I think my breathing was something that I developed over time to be able to get myself into that kind of aggressive state of mind. And Breezy, Breezy knows I'm always there. I talk to her a lot, and I, obviously saw her in Copper. She didn't get to ski one of the days because, her knee was swollen, and her injury is very substantial. And she's worked incredibly hard to get back for it. I think what helped me is knowing that I was in the absolute best shape I possibly could be in. Sometimes I wasn't obviously I wasn't the same athlete that I was before the injury. I think you never really are. And sometimes, you're physically not able to do the things you were able to do before, but I still believed in the strength that I had and how much work I had put in. And that gave me confidence. I also, again, I'm someone that I'm not risk averse. I knew that I could get injured at any time, and I was okay with that. I was always okay with that. And I think, inherently when you get injured, a lot of, especially the women that I know, they continuously think about the injury and what if it's going to happen again. And I just spent all this time, getting back to this point, and I could be, right back in the same place, which I have also done, coming back, trying to make it to Sochi, crashing in Copper, in the November camp and missing out on those Olympics was pretty brutal. 2 ACLs back to back within a 10-month span was not ideal, but I still had no regrets. I mean, I wish that I hadn't skied that day because the conditions were not ideal, but I still was in the starting gate with confidence. And I think that's one thing that, Breezy takes a lot of pride in how hard she works, as she should. And I think that's something that's going to give her, the mental edge to be able to hopefully get back to where she was. And then, building on that and getting those wins. I think right now, Sophie is in incredible shape. I don't think I've ever seen her so strong and also, happy
Goja.
and Goja.
Yeah.
And happy and clear-minded. So I think she's going to be a really tough one to beat this year. But that being said, Sophie skis similar to myself, where, she always pushes herself to the absolute limit, which is why I love watching a race. We never know what she's going to do. But I think that also gives, Breezy an opportunity to capitalize on those mistakes if she does make any. But I'm always cheering for Breezy, and she's, again, one of the hardest workers that I know. So I hope that she's able to come back this season and get back on the podium, and also hopefully get a win under her belt.
Last week, we talked a little bit about rivalries. I had Zerbergen, Marco had Kroll, Rolfs had the Herminator. Talk about those rivalries throughout your career. What did they give you, or what did they do to you to raise your limit? Who were those people, and what did they do for you?
Well, it's interesting for me. I mean, I think, when I was really winning a lot, Maria and I were 1 and 2. I mean, I think we had, between the two of us, had every single downhill win for like 3 years straight. No one else popped in there, but we were also really good friends. I never looked at it as, racing against her. I looked at it as, I just want to win, and that includes beating everyone, not just Maria, but everyone. I think the rivalry that Julia and I had as juniors was something that really motivated me, because, kind of everyone had anointed her as, the golden child, and I was kind of an afterthought. I mean, I was really skinny. I, was very green, and I liked speed, and Julie was, getting World Cup points already in like her first season of GS. So we, when we first were FIS legal, we were on very different trajectories. And I think that definitely motivated me, not just in those years, but also following, because I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder that no one had believed in me. And actually I had overheard conversations of my coaches saying they don't believe in me. So, I think I had something to prove to them, but also to myself that I could do it. And beyond that, I don't really, see myself as having really any rivalries. I think, again, it was more, people that motivated me, that I watched, and I, studied, and, found where I could be better, and I think helped push me to be better. Not that I was, necessarily racing just specifically against them as a rivalry.
With that said, like when you're coming up, your first couple of World Cup races, was there anybody that was like a little more intimidating on the women's tour, like kind of trying to mentally mess with you a little bit because they saw your speed and kind of a little threatened?
I mean, kind of the first seasons where I was, starting to get wins and speed, Koslich definitely tried to play a couple of mind games with me and, tried to kind of be the voice when the weather was bad that, is really dangerous and, I don't know what's going to happen. And, kind of put these little nuggets of doubt in myself. And I saw right through it and I laughed to myself.
Nice.
I'm like, I don't know what you think that you're doing here, but it's certainly actually doing the opposite because I now want to beat you.
Yeah, well, for you, it's more fuel to your fire. For others, maybe at work, it's like she is definitely one. It's funny you pointed her out because she's one of the ones like I could see being a little nasty like that. Yeah.
Yeah, she just and it's not even it was never aggressive. It was never angry. It was just this little voice that she tried to get in there. But I had my earmuffs on and it didn't get in. But I think, also women are a little bit different, I think, in the way they approach kind of the mental mind games. And I think women are mostly inherently, they don't want to talk directly to each other. They're, it's more behind and, it's like gossipy and it's not really anything direct. There's no like direct conflict where, men are like, I want to beat you or, this bothers me. And you guys talk directly to each other. Women are definitely not like that, especially on the World Cup. And it's usually that I hear things in the media, like this person said this or this person said that. And, coaches hear things. And honestly, again, all of those things just motivated me, every time, people said bad things or, whatever it was just another way to drive me in the off season and also in the race season.
This week, we are proud to welcome the ADL Ski Club as a new supporter to this season's podcast. The ADL has members all over the country and are huge fans of the World Cup and big supporters of the American downhillers. Their dream trips go to Kitzbühel, Wengen, the Dolomites, and Japan for Japao. But this month, they are supporting the American downhillers with an online auction to help raise money for the men's speed team coaches mentorship fund, and they need your help. The aim of the fund is to bring back experienced coaches and athletes to pass along their valuable insight, experience, and support to the new generation of coaches. This year's funds go to get Forrest Carey, Dane Spencer, and our own Marco Sullivan back coaching our best. For all information on supporting this fund, go to adlskiclub.com/fundraiser. That's adlskiclub.com/fundraiser. You can bet on all kinds of great U.S. ski team gear with race suits available from Steven Nyman, Jared Goldberg, and Tommy Ford, as well as official U.S. ski team clothing. All items are 100% tax deductible and will go exclusively to the fund. The ADL and Coach Scotty Venus, thank you for your support.
Lake Louise, I mean, you dominated there, but the U.S. ski team women had some great results also. I think it was 2014. There was a sweep. You, Stacy Cook, Julie Mancuso, and then Lauren Ross was sixth. I mean, that was awesome, times. I mean, obviously you want to win, you want to be the number one in the world, but also be number one on the U.S. ski team. That's a big thing. But I mean, one, I guess, like, were you guys really working well together those last couple of years, like those couple of years? And was there anything different for that race? Anything else? And how was the party that night? Like, what did you guys do?
I don't think I ever partied, especially not in Lake Louise, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that we had a really
Calgary's a good place.
I think we had a really good downhill team for a lot of years, and I think we really worked well with each other. We helped each other. Our course reports were awesome. We pushed each other in training. I think it was Stacy and Loren and Alice McKennis, and I think I learned what being a good teammate was from Kristen Clark and Jonna Mendez. I was a really young athlete within a very mature downhill group, and they didn't torment me. I mean, they did a little bit. Jonna did give me a swirly, but but I do think that they taught me a lot about how you approach being a team. I think Jonna was one of the best teammates I ever had she was one that loved course reports and was really specific and always asked me what I needed. And she could tailor her report based on that. And I kind of try to take that into the team when, we were always on a roll. I think that's something that we figured out, how to do really well is support each other. And, it's kind of us against the world. And I loved that. There was, whether it was me or Stacy or Julia, we were always on the podium pretty much every single time, for quite a few years. And I loved it. It was such a great dynamic, and being on the podium with all Americans was pretty awesome.
I just listening to you talk about the team, and it sounds like you're still pretty tied with some heavy hitters now, like talking to the top World Cup girls and our own team. Like, what do you see coming up for this first race in Lake Louise? Do you have any predictions?
I was on the hill for a little bit. I watched, our girls. I watched the Austrian girls. I think, Keely Cashman unfortunately broke her hand. So, she was actually skiing really well. So I'm not sure, how quickly she's going to be able to jump back from that. Her knuckle was like shattered. But Breezy, I think obviously has a good chance of getting back in there. I think she's still building her confidence, and I hope these past few days in Copper have kind of given her that going into Lake Louise. But also she knows Lake Louise. She knows what to do, and you don't really need a lot if you've raced there a few times to be able to go in there and ski with confidence. I think Bella Wright is definitely someone that's coming up, and her and I are very close, and I think she's someone that has become a student of the sport in a way that I feel she's matured a lot in the last few years, especially this past season, and I think she's mentally ready to get in there. I think she's still working on building her confidence because she has great instincts and great speed, which is what you can't teach. But I think she's young and she needs a little bit of work on tactics, and which is the same with any speed skier kind of coming onto the scene. And Masuga is skiing pretty well. And I honestly didn't get to see many of the other girls. I think Trisha Mangan was there, and she actually skied very well. I think she was most of the time one of the fastest in the group. And she works incredibly hard. I mean, she's going to school and, trying to make the team. And I have a great deal of respect for that. And, she's someone that is putting her head down and working hard every single day. And I love it. So I think, while our team isn't as deep, as I would hope it would be, I think we do have potential coming up. And there were a couple of young development team girls that were getting training on the venue as well in Copper. And I think, given more time and direction, we can hopefully foster those young girls as well. But I will say, I'm disappointed that Alex Hodemoser isn't on the team anymore. He was my speed coach since I was, 16, and I think he brought a lot to the team. But I think, and I hope the new staff will be able to kind of help also these girls develop. But I don't know the staff as well. But I think it does take, a team effort from the coaching staff as well to be able to develop these girls.
Just go with that a little bit on the coach. What did you need from the coach? Was it more mental? Was it technical? Was it physical? And I know it changes throughout your career, but what did you want from a coach and what worked for you?
I never needed anything mentally from a coach. I always was a very driven person. I think what I needed from a coach most was positive reinforcement and simplicity, but also knowledge. So that's one thing that Alex brought to the table. He obviously was an amazing racer himself. He was racing with Everharder and all those guys, when he was a junior and blew his knee out and never really made it to where he should have gone. But he understood downhill and Super G specifically. He understood the line, which is very difficult in Super G. It's hard to gauge the speed. It's hard to really know the line, and he always knew the line, and I could always trust him with that. It's important for a downhiller to be able to trust your coach and know that the line is accurate, because when you're going obviously that fast, you have to trust where you're going, and you have to trust that when you get a report, especially in Super G, that if there's an adjustment that needs to be made, they can give that to you and you can obviously make that adjustment. So I think for me, Alex was, really the perfect combination of everything. He was not overcomplicated. He was always positive. He always believed in me, and I was always able to trust him. He always gave me precise and accurate information.
Where did Alex end up this year? Do you know where is he still coaching for a different team?
Yeah, he's head of the Austrian speed team.
Oh, funny how that.
Yeah, I know. It was wearing
the
red,
Austrian
all
women's
red,
team?
and I was like, "What are you doing? Why are you wearing this uniform?"
Is it the Austrian women's speed team?
Yeah,
Correct.
and
yeah.
they have a lot of girls, and they are going to be a force this year. They had 12 girls up there, some of which were coming back from injury, but most of which were skiing pretty well, and so they have a very deep team. And with him as a coach, I would say they'll probably be pretty darn competitive.
Talking about coaching, to expand on that, so Patrick Rimmel, Alpine director now with the U.S. ski team. He was for like 7 years, went to Canadians, came back. And then your last season, didn't you or Red Bull kind of help support him to be in your camp as a private coach in a way? And how do you think he's going to help support our top athletes, but also really develop the youth? Like you said, like we've never had a lot of depth. We've had great skiers, but what we need in the U.S. is strong depth, and I'm just kind of wondering, like, his position now, how he's going to help develop that in your eyes.
Yeah, I've known Patrick since I was 15 or 16, and he started on the U.S. team I think around 2002 or 2003. So I think he has a great skill in the sense that he can really manage things well and develop things well, and has a great business sense. I think he also is, he wants to do more business, but he is an amazing coach as well. He coached me in not only tech, but also speed. And he did help me in my final season, and not as a private coach though. I definitely was always integrated within the team. I never separated myself. I needed sometimes, different training because of my knee and what I was capable of doing. But I was always very integrated into the team, and everyone that I worked with was also working with the rest of the girls. But I was one of the people that I really felt strongly in bringing Rimmel back. I think that, to your point of development, it's one thing that we really need in the US is to focus more on the development. The only reason that I'm even that I was on the team was because I was on an in development team program, and we had the funding to do that before the 2002 Olympics. And I think we need to get back to that. We need to support athletes on, the lower levels, NORAM, Europa Cup, and really develop them from the very beginning. And Aldo was ahead of that development team program in between 2000 and 2002. So I think Rimmel knows that. He understands that. He understands how to, again, manage the team in a way, and I think in a disciplined way. He's obviously very European, but he's also very American. He lives in Heber in Utah. He's very much committed to being in the US. And I think that's something that we need, because we need to be able to bridge the gap between, Europe and the US, and utilize the European assets, but also, maintain our DNA as Americans.
Here on the development. In 1980, we had never won a World Cup. We never won a World Championship medal. We had never won, this is the men's downhill team, never won an Olympic medal. And in 80, we started with 40 people. It wasn't that great. We had 40 development kids. And 4 years later, we had Bill Johnson, myself, and just went on to AJ, Darren, Marco. So it takes a bigger pyramid. I'm right with you. I want to get back to Lake Louise and skis. Did you have a Lake Louise pair of skis, like that was it? Or did you just win on anything Heinz gave you? Talk about the equipment specific to Lake Louise.
Yeah, I kind of just won on whatever Heinz gave me. Heinz, he's not called Magic Heinz for nothing. He always knew what he was doing, and I always trusted him. I think, when I won by the 1.95, that was a season that I was on men's skis and no one else was. I was pretty much laughed out of the room when people heard that I was doing that. No one thought that I would be able to turn the skis, and then I came down and mopped the floor with everyone, which was awesome, because I love when people tell me I can't do something and then I go and show them that I can. And I think it changed, how women approach downhill and what they were capable of doing. And, from an equipment standpoint, I think everyone just assumed that they needed soft, shorter skis and that was the best way. And, I was on a really, really stiff men's ski and I was very similar to Bodie in that way. I loved a stiff ski and I loved talking to the men about it because they were very open about sharing information where women do not share information at all ever, which is very annoying. But I could always talk to the men because I was skiing on the same skis. So I talked to Axel and Jansrud and the French guys. I wanted to know all of the information that they had, and I could also talk to them, after they raced at Lake Louise. How is the new model running? What's going on with the skis, and also boots for that matter. So I definitely felt like being on men's skis was an advantage from, obviously a performance standpoint, but also from an information gathering perspective, because I was able to talk to the men so openly about, what was working and what wasn't. But honestly, the skis were kind of irrelevant in a lot of ways because I knew that hill so well. And once I started winning on it, it was, I won on Rosignol and I won on Head, it wasn't really, obviously you need to have fast skis to win on the flats. But, I felt like I had a lot of confidence on that trail.
Doug Lewis here. If you are a U12, U14, or U16, Elite Team fitness camps are for you. This is not your average fitness camp as we teach the vital skills of sports psychology and sports nutrition along with tough, challenging workouts. You will leave camp with more power, strength, and agility, with a deeper understanding about nutrition and with the mental skills of confidence, focus, and pushing limits, which will take you to the next level. Over our 30 years, we have coached Olympic champions, World Cup stars, NCAA champions, including U.S. ski teamers Michaela Schifrin, Lauren Masuga, Alice Merriweather, Jimmy Krupka, Grace Henderson, and Sammy Worthington. And finally, although we push our limits to the edge, we have a ton of fun. We are holding 2 week-long sessions this July at the Killington Mountain School. Find all the info at eliteteam.com.
How about boots? Was there something that it was, did you have a different setup between tech and speed for boots?
Yeah, I always had different setup for tech and speed. I never really changed what I liked. I was always very specific. I liked a less aggressive boot. I don't like, I think it's very dangerous to have an aggressive setup in speed. And I think, a lot of people go with an aggressive boot setup and a lot of base bevel. And I don't think that that's the right approach. I think you can get yourself in a tricky situation if things don't necessarily go right. I think base bevel is a really important component of speed that's not really thought about as much as I think it should be. Because it can make a big difference. And obviously the way your skis are gliding, but also, catching edges is something that's been happening, quite a bit, especially with all the man-made snow. And it's really easy for things to go wrong really quickly. So I think I have a different kind of perspective than most on boots and skis and all of those details. I was very specific and very detail oriented when it came to my equipment. So I think it's probably counter to what most women do.
Yeah, so on boot setup, were you more like canted inside so you had less edge? Like, a full degree? Do you remember how much you're in?
More. Yeah, more than a degree.
Yeah. No, for me too. I like having that feeling of, like get the skis away from me, and I didn't want to get jammed up. And you see so many, especially young kids, having way too much edge and fighting it. But it's like when you have like that less aggressive setup, especially in boots, like you're saying, you can get your skis away from you. You can get a good platform and really get the angles set up so you can just, put a lot of power on the skis. And obviously you look super comfortable. I was just watching actually some video of you this morning, tuning up for this, the top part of Lake Louise, and your bully just so loose and just, I think that's another thing like that Marco and the whole crew at American Downhill were trying to like emphasize the kids is just milk the terrain, work the terrain. You want to be connected with the mountain. And you could see in your skiing, like you're always so well connected and just riding the terrain really, really well. And that has a lot to do with your setup for sure.
Yeah, I think that it's almost impossible to, be able to work terrain when your skis are so aggressive. It's just, you're not able to let your skis float. You're not able to really use the backside of any rolls. And I think, it really stems from this old school mentality of, let's do your boots, your kneecap has to align perfectly over your big toe. And that's how it is. And that's not how it is. You could stand there, but when you're actually, skiing in a turn, that's not how, your body works. You could be, you could be duck footed, you could be, bow legged. There's a lot of different things that could happen that, require a different setup than, let's just make your kneecap line up with your toes. And I think a lot of kids are, to the point of, Marco trying to teach them how to, glide and absorb terrain. It's almost impossible for kids to do that with how their boots are set up. I would rather just get a straight boot with no canting, just go out of the box, than have someone overly cant their boots to be aggressive. I think they're better off. And also it's more consistent. I think there's a lot of times boots are ground and they're not actually even when we're put on a flat surface, they'll rock, which then will be obviously extremely dangerous when you're in a binding, because then there's too much play and your ski could pop out. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement in the US from the equipment side.
Dane Spencer comes to our camps and helps kids out with boots, and he's got a lot of the similar mentality of that boots often come from the factory with that little bit of wobble, and just to get them flat and to get them to zero, that's a great starting point. And then it kind of goes from how the kid skis and how you line up. But as you emphasize, like, so important to be connected to that and know what's going on.
Yeah, I just talked to Dane in Copper, and I've heard from a lot of the coaches that his footwork's been really helpful, and a lot of the kids have had a lot of success so far with what he's been doing. So I'm happy that someone's out there doing that. And there actually is a couple I saw from a friend of mine that there's a new boot grinding machine that can actually do it very accurately in a quick amount of time. So I don't remember what the machine was called, but I'm excited that exists and that kids can, get lined up right from the beginning. Fun fact, one of my first seasons, I think was trying to qualify for the US team. I didn't finish in 50 out of 55 races, and in slalom. I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? My dad was so frustrated. He's like, if you don't finish this race, you will not qualify for the US team. And it was like, there's nothing I could do. I leaned in every single time, and I found out later that one of my boots was double canted. So I was over 2 degrees in on one of my boots. And, ironically, I started seeing speed because of that. I was going to ski speed anyways, but I kind of focused more on speed because of that. And I had different boots and they were working and I was skiing well. But in slalom, I literally was not finishing because I was over canted on one side. And it wasn't me. I was happy just to find out years later that it wasn't me.
Something you said struck a chord with me when you said, if someone tells me I can't, I'm going to. And all of us, when we hear a question, we'll say yes instead of no. We'll say, why not instead of why? So where did that come from? A dad, a coach? Where did that come from where you're like, I'm going to say yes instead of no?
Always. I've been, I think my parents would probably say I was annoying, but if they said I don't climb the tree, I climb the tree. I just was something that, if I felt like I could do it, I wanted to do it. And I've pretty much my whole career had someone telling me that I couldn't do something. I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the strength, I didn't have, the ability, whatever it was. I felt like I always was having someone tell me that I couldn't. And again, I always use that as motivation because I knew what I was capable of. And even before I knew it, I believed it, and that propelled me to work harder. It wasn't that I just magically believed, it was also that I combined that with the work ethic that, made that belief possible.
You think that's a coaching strategy in the end? Because you obviously could do almost everything on a ski. You think your coaches just started telling you couldn't just to piss you off and fire you up?
I wish they were that smart. No, they didn't.
Alex is like,
No.
Lindsey, there's no way you can ski this section. It's too gnarly. This is too fast for you. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, watch me. He did joke with me sometimes, but he couldn't even keep a straight face because he knew what my answer would always be. But yeah, I think that if my competitors would have known that, they probably would have not said half the things I said, especially in the media. And I remember everything. Like, I remember every time someone said something bad, especially if it was in an interview. And I never, well, I may be nice to you, I will never let it go. So that's just.
Hey, Doug Lewis here, and I want to talk about the American Downhiller Speed Camp. American Downhiller is the leader in teaching young ski racers how to go fast and have fun. 2023 will mark the 6th annual American Downhiller Speed Skills Camp in Mammoth Mountain. Our speed camp is coached exclusively by current and former World Cup racers and coaches who are passionate about helping the next generation of athletes achieve their dreams. We specifically focus on aerodynamics, jumping technique, speed tactics, and the mental training required to safely navigate Super G and downhill race courses. If you are a ski racer who wants to go fast, check out our website, AmericanDownhiller.com, for all specific camp dates.
Nice. So you going back like through your career, you've always been one of those super hard workers and all that. Like, I mean, you just kind of get used to like staying fit. What are you doing these days to for workouts? I know you're still kind of way into that stuff.
Don't you watch your Instagram? I get tired just watching.
What's your go-to like, get ready for the ski season sort of like routine?
I mean, I like right now I'm kind of working. I usually in the summer I do a lot of cardio, and now I'm kind of working more into circuit training. I've never did a lot of circuit training as a racer, because there wasn't a lot of need for it, and that's kind of mainly what I do. I mean, I guess I do a lot more squats than leading up to the season that I normally do, like more stuff on the power plate, and I've got my tempo at home, so I'm doing more of like the leg, heavy leg hit sessions, trying to get a little bit of endurance in there. But I mean, it's not like I'm pushing myself to the extreme when I'm skiing down the mountain, with my friends, but still it's nice to be, with my knee, I really have to stay in shape. And I think for me, it's more of a mental thing, to be working out as hard as I do than it is necessarily physical. Because I don't have an outlet, I don't have the skiing, and at least in the gym, I can be very present and, put all of the other things aside and be able to just be in the moment and push myself really hard. And that's what I think I enjoy the most.
Real quick, my daughter Miley was asking, like, what's Lindsey do now, like for fun, like for sports? So is there anything, are you playing pickleball? You're like,
no,
what's your deal in the summertime?
Not that old yet.
Come on, that's a pretty fun one.
I'm definitely not old enough to play pickleball. I've actually been playing a lot of tennis.
Nice.
I'm getting a replacement in the spring, and so I feel like I'm just going to grind my knee down to the stubs and play as much tennis as I can. And it's been really fun. It's something that it's like I can get some aggression out, and I really enjoy it. But I kind of just enjoy doing anything and everything. I love finding new sports and new challenges, and I've gotten into a little bit mountain biking. I still suck at it, but I like it. A lot of road biking. I've been skinning, believe it or not. I hiked up a mountain on skins, mainly because I like being with my dogs and they love it. But that's something that I've kind of found that I slightly enjoy. I think if I was racing back in the day when you had to inspect, hiking up the hill, I would absolutely never have been a racer. That's why God created chairlifts. But I just enjoy, having fun and, wake surfing or wakeboarding or kite surfing or whatever it is. I think, finding those new challenges is fun.
I was part of that era where we had to climb up the slalom. So
yeah, no thanks.
Downhill.
A hard pass for me. That's a hard pass. Yeah.
One thing that we haven't talked about, I'd like to squeak in here, is nutrition. I remember covering you and at one point you ate 23 eggs a day or something really crazy. What are your simple go-tos and beliefs about nutrition and how important it is?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried a lot of different things. I was, I tried the no carbs. I tried pretty much only carbs. I mean, back when I was first on the team, they were telling us to eat, huge amounts of pasta at every meal. And, I was like, what? I don't think this is a good idea. But there's been a lot of schools of thought. I think for me, it was finding out, what I felt best eating before races, and the night before I found that eating meat or pasta, anything heavy, really didn't sit well with me, and I was pretty more lethargic the next day. I always try to have something light like fish and fish and rice and vegetables. And then before the race, obviously in Europe it's a challenge to find consistency in anything. Sometimes it's like croissants and a slice of ham and cheese, and sometimes it's eggs, and sometimes it's muesli. So I kind of just rolled with whatever was available. I prefer a mix of protein and carb in the morning, and also fat. I think fat is not necessarily easy to come by in Europe, but if I can get an avocado or some bacon or something with fat in it, that will sustain me a lot more. And I was someone that, when I got on the hill, I had a hard time eating after that. And so I always lost a lot of weight in the season because I just wasn't able to get the calories. And also, like, after you finish a race, you need to replenish, you needed the protein shake or, fruit or, something at the end to make sure you're getting, you're replacing all the glucose and everything that you've just expelled. But it was hard for me to eat and to get, again, those calories. So I think it's, managing yourself the best that you can, finding what works best for you. And some people, they don't operate well with oatmeal. Some people do. So it's just really figuring out, what works best for you, I think.
Amongst the four of us, if we all lined up with downhill boards on and just had a tuck off, who would be fastest?
I will play chicken. I will not break. I will go right to the fence. So
I'd say it's between you and Marco.
I would love to do it though. If it's a challenge, I just told you, game on. Let's do it.
All right, you better come out for American Downhiller in May then. Let's do it.
I'll get Heinze to get me some fast boards.
How much do you ski now, Lindsey, on a regular basis? Are you able to get a bunch of days in the winter?
Yeah, I definitely try. I kind of go up. Deer Valley lets me up early, so I kind of get 3-4 runs in before the public's out. I go fast, and then I, go home and go back to work. But I try to, obviously last year there was like no snow, so it was a bit frustrating. But if there's a powder day, I'm definitely first one on the lift. If not, I just, again, if I can get early up, so I'll definitely take the opportunity. But I'd probably like, I don't know, 30 days, maybe. It's it's a fair amount. It's not, like crazy, but I also really like skiing with my family. So whenever they're in town, which they're going to be here for Thanksgiving. So I haven't skied with my dad since the year of Pyeongchang. So I'm hoping I can get back on the mountain with him this year. And I skied with my sisters last year, which is really fun. I think, skiing is one of those sports that is so family oriented, and you can do it, for a really long time. I honestly don't know how long my knees will allow me to do that, but I'm definitely going to ski with my family as long as possible.
And talk about any projects that you have going on besides skiing, because you're doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot. I mean, I'm pretty excited. There's a lot of opportunity, and we just got a CBS deal with my production company, Opry Productions, and my partner Claire Abbey. I've got my goggle company, Unique. I've got a bunch of cool designs coming out for my head ski line. I am on I'm actually chief of athletic experience for the Salt Lake Olympic bid, which I was just on a phone call this morning for. So hoping I can help get the Olympics back to Salt Lake. I'm on a bunch of boards with different companies. I'm kind of helping with marketing and companies. So I'm doing a lot, and I just like new challenges. So I never like to kind of put myself in one box. I just like to wake up every day and find, something new to excite me and work really hard. And that's what I enjoy.
It's admirable. We definitely admire everything you're doing, the sport, what you've done in the sport, just and what you continue to do. And also, like, you have that Lindsey Vonn Foundation, right, where you support young women skiers. Like, you want to expand on that too?
Yeah. So
the direct effect to skiing.
Yeah. So 2015, I started. That was one of the best things I think that came out of my injuries, was being able to start the foundation. And we give scholarships and programs to underprivileged girls. We have given quite a few scholarships, and some of them actually resulted in people making it to the Olympics. One snowboarder. So, I support snowboarders. But we don't just focus on sports though. It's 50% education, 50% sport. So we've had a lot of girls from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different states, and I'm really proud of it. And I hope that we can continue to expand. I would love to get the foundation over to Europe as well. It's something that they don't really do any youth programs over in Europe, especially for girls. So it's something that I think for me is really important, because Peekaboo made such a big impact on my life. And I met her at a ski shop autograph signing for 90 seconds, and I still have her poster in my room, which may or not be weird at 38. It's okay, I accept it. But it's just a reminder that you can have a huge impact on someone with very little effort and very little time.
Well, to make our lasting impact, before we sign off, thank you so much for this hour. Is there one particular race, one particular win at Lake Louise, so we can maybe look it up on YouTube, that was your favorite, that just stands out for you, and why?
Yeah, the one that I won by such a large margin. Because again, I was on men's skis, and it was such a big statement. It was the first race of the year. And I like shocking people, I like doing things differently. And I think that was a lot of validation for me and the work that I had put in. I mean, I could name a lot of World Cups that I loved, winning there, especially, coming back from my 2 ACL surgeries and winning my second race back. That was amazing too. But I think what stands out to me the most is that first win with Heinze and with the men's skis.
Awesome. We'll look it up on YouTube and post it in the notes. Thanks for watching and listening to our American Downhiller podcast. Next week, we will breaking down the course where Darren Rolfe still has the course record at Beaver Creek. How cool is that? They're headed to Beaver Creek. For AJ, Darren, Marco, and the GOAT, Lindsey Vonn, thanks for listening. A special thanks to our sponsors, skiracing.com, adlskiclub.com, American Downhillers Camps and Clinics, and Elite Team Fitness Camps. If you'd like to sponsor these podcasts, contact Doug Lewis at info@americandownhiller.com. Ski fast.